Alrighty. Hello. Um, Welcome to the transfer on death deed presentation here. I think maybe we'll have some people joining as the first few minutes get started here, but we're just going to go ahead and get moving with the presentation. So let's start. Who are we? Well, my name is Frank. I'm a student at the University of Minnesota Law School, and I work with Mid-Minnesota Legal Aid. MMLA is an organization. It provides legal services for free in all sorts of civil issues, and it's for low-income folks or anyone who's a senior. And another person who works for Mid-Minnesota Legal Aid is Patty, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi there, my name is Patty Walton, and I'm the staff attorney that is at the Harrison Neighborhood Association. 2 days a week, we have a civil legal clinic on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 10 to 3. So anytime you have a civil legal issue or you have a problem and you're not really sure how to solve it, you're welcome to come down. All of our services are free, and I would love to talk to you. Thanks.
All right, yep. And Harrison Neighborhood Association works with Mid-Minnesota Legal Aid, hosts Patty in their office. And if you don't know Harrison, they do a lot of great work to make the Harrison neighborhood a better place. And yeah. So our goal today is really to give anyone who's interested the information they need to plan out what's going to happen to their home when they pass away. So the plan for the presentation, we're going to go through 5 steps. First, what is a transfer on death deed? Got to know that before you know if you should use one. Some of the benefits of using them. There are some complications with making and using a transfer on death deed. How do you make your transfer on death deed? We'll go over that. And what the recipients, the person receiving the home, should do once you pass away. So I'm going to return to the screen multiple times throughout the presentation. I'll hold a little bit of space there to read any questions that you might want to ask. If you would like, just type the questions into the comments area and type them at any point. I'll look at them once we get to the screen. So what is a transfer on death deed? It is a way for you to transfer your home from your ownership to whoever you want once you pass away. So it will automatically transfer your home. That's what a transfer on death deed does. It's kind of like a will in that regard, but there are some important differences. So wills, right, kind of they're used by a lot of people for a lot of more complex situations. If you have a home and a car and a bank account and a bunch of other property that you want to split between a bunch of different people once you pass away, then a will be better. Whereas a transfer on death deed is just for your home. So you can't transfer the money in your bank account, for instance, with a transfer on death deed. Only your home. Transfer on death deeds, because they're a little bit simpler like that, they're very low cost. They're $46. Wills can get really expensive with lawyers and going through court, and that kind of leads to the next point. Wills almost always have to go what's called probate court, and probate court is timely, it takes a long time, and it can be expensive as well. So with a transfer on death deed, you skip all that. You don't have to go to probate court. The home automatically transfers without that whole process. So other than the kind of points I just touched on there, why should you use a TODD? Well, a transfer on death deed, right, you get to control your home as opposed to the government. We'll go over each of these. It's good because you get to keep the home in your community, in your family. Really, it's a good way to keep generational wealth. And you can avoid bank foreclosures. It's just, since it's that automatic transfer, it helps avoid any kind of issues with the bank that can come with having a will. All right, so the first one, right, you get to control your property. So you really get to give your home to whoever you want with a transfer on death deed. It could go to your daughter, it could go to your friend, really anybody. So with that control in mind, that's great compared to if you don't have a will or you don't have a transfer on death deed. If you have no plan for your home, the government is going to end up deciding who your home goes to once you pass away. And the government doesn't really prioritize things that maybe you would, right? If your daughter is living in your home and you pass away without a will or a transfer on death deed, there's no guarantee that that home is going to go to your daughter who's actually living in it. It could go to any number of different people. Yeah, and kind of connected to that, when the government decides who it's going to give your home to when you don't have a plan, often it will end up giving the property to multiple people. It will say like, well, it's going to be split between all of the siblings, all of the children of the person who passed away. So say you own the home right now, you have 3 kids, you pass away, it goes to each of those 3 kids. Now they all own it. And if one of those kids wants to sell it, we start to get into a bit of an issue, right? If one of those kids wants to sell it, then and the other 2 cannot afford to buy it or just don't want to buy it from them, then that one that wants to sell it can go to court and say, hey, I want to sell this thing. I technically own it along with them 2, but they're not letting me. The court's going to say, well, let's do a partition. That means that the court would order that the home is split into 3. But that doesn't really work, right? You can't split a home into 3. Like you get the kitchen, I get the bathroom, I get the bedroom. It just doesn't work for homes. If you had a plot of land, it could work, right? Because, I get that third, you get this third, they get that third. But with a home, since you can't partition it, the court says, okay, well, we can't do that. We're going to have to do a forced sale. A forced sale, the court literally forces that home to be sold on the open market, and then the proceeds from that sale are split in between the 3 siblings, right? The 3 former owners. The issue with that is, well, 1, maybe you didn't want your home to be sold, and 2, when the government sells property, they really don't get the best market deal for it. So often those owners are kind of missing out on a lot of the equity that was in that home. Another issue, if you don't have a transfer on death deed or something assigning the home to the person who actually lives in the home, that person who lives in it could have qualified for a lot of tax benefits, like I want to say it's called the Homestead Act tax benefit. But without that element of planning, the government isn't going to prioritize that. That was a slide giving the example that I kind of went over. And yeah, the last point I'll touch on is that TODDs help avoid foreclosures. So with a transfer on death deed, the home automatically transfers to whoever you want it to. And that means that they can very quickly go to the bank, show that they're now the owners and start paying that mortgage. Interestingly, banks don't let just anyone pay the mortgage, even though they get the money. You have to be the owner to pay the mortgage. So it's important to quickly be able to show the bank that, yes, I am the owner, I'm going to pay the mortgage. Even with a will, if it goes through probate court, that time in probate court, potentially no one's paying the mortgage. So getting behind on mortgage payments and starting that foreclosure process. And I'll just say, even if the mortgage is completely paid, there's still property taxes to pay. And having that automatic transfer just ensures that the new owner is able to slip right into, the habit of paying everything that needs to be paid on time. All right. What are the possible complications? So there are a few, but they're not too crazy, and maybe I won't cover on all of them. Feel free to leave a comment and ask about your own issue, or if you think that something in your life would make it not really work for you, you can always call Mid-Minnesota Legal Aid, and we can help you work through that. So the first complication, let's say you're married. It's complicated enough already, right? But it makes the TODD process a little bit complicated, because if you're married with a spouse and you bought the home at the same time, it's likely that you two own it together, which means if you want to create a transfer on death deed giving it to your daughter, you also have to get your spouse's sign off, right? They have to agree to the plan. So they have to agree to who it's going to go to, and they have to agree whose death will trigger the transfer. So is it just going to be yours, and once you pass away, even if your spouse is still alive, the home will transfer, or will it be when both of you pass away, then the home will transfer? So you just have to plan that out. The next is similar, right? You own the home with others. Say it's you owning the home with your two siblings. Again, you just need to get their permission. You need to get everybody in agreement that it's going to go to someone and whose death is going to trigger that transfer. Just the more people that own the home, the more complicated and more difficult it can be to get everybody in agreement. All right, a little bit different here. Say the person who the home's going to go to, the recipient, receives public benefits. Maybe they have supplemental security income, a housing voucher, or food stamps. There's the potential that the recipient would lose their public benefits once that home transfers. Not once you make the transfer on death deed, but once you pass away and that home automatically transfers, now they have this huge asset that could disqualify them for those public benefits. And if you know anything about public benefits, it's that they're really complicated. And so we recommend talking with a lawyer about how when that property does transfer, how's that going to affect the recipient, and make sure that the recipient is okay with that. So it just takes some communication and planning and figuring out what's going to go on when this home transfers. All right. Fourth complication, if you're thinking of giving your home to multiple people, that's completely allowed. You could give it to all of your children. It's just, you should be aware of the risks, right? And I've already talked about it. If you've got multiple people living in a home or owning a home and one of them wants to sell it, right? They could go to court and force that home sale. And so it's just worth knowing the risks and talking and planning with the recipients before creating a transfer on death deed that gives the home to multiple people. Can skip that. And the last complication, if you're trying to give the home to someone under 18, it's not going to work. You'll have to create a different plan for the home. A will might be better in that case. You're going to have to likely either do more research or talk with a lawyer about your options. All right, how to make your own transfer on death deed. It's a pretty simple 3-step process. You fill out a form, you notarize the form, and you mail it to a county recorder along with like a $46 check. So the form is really, it's simple. It's a 2-page form, front and back. You're going to need to know the legal description of your property. The legal description is not your address. It's what's found on your deed. It kind of describes like your property is, 4 meters by 10 meters or whatever. And so you can get that off your deed, or if you would like, you could call Mid-Minnesota Legal Aid, call Patty. We'll have the phone number up here in just a second, and we can find the legal description of your property as well. After that, you just need the signatures of all the owners and spouses of those owners. Anyone who is on title for the property needs to agree. And before you sign the document. You should fill it all out, but don't sign it yet. You need to be with a certified notary to sign this document. So getting a form notarized, if you're not familiar, it's just going to someone who's certified to say, yes, the one who signed it is actually that person. Frank, that's Frank's signature, and Frank was in front of me signing it. So you can do that at Harrison Neighborhood Association on Tuesdays and Thursdays because Patty is a certified notary. And then you could also go to UPS stores. Most UPS stores will have a certified notary there where you can get it notarized and mail it off all in one go. And that leads to mailing your TODD. So you can, before you mail your TODD off, we recommend making a bunch of copies. You should have one for the bank, have one for the recipients, whoever you're going to give the home to, have one for yourself, and then there's the one that you're going to send to the county so that they have it in their records that you have this plan. And you'll send it to the county recorder, and it's the county where the home is. So if you happen to live in Ramsey County, but the home is in Hennepin County, the home you own, then you'll have to send the filled out TODD to the Hennepin County recorder. And it is $46 to record that. All right. If you're thinking, wow, I think a transfer on death deed would be great, but I kind of want some help. It can be intimidating to make a plan that's gonna, it's a plan that has legal power, right? It's gonna do something. Well, we have a free pro bono lawyer team that wants to help you out and make sure you do everything the way you want to. To get a hold of them, you can call Patty Walton or email, because Patty has the connects to that team of pro bono lawyers, and she'll get you connected with them. All right. Last little thing here, not so little actually, is what the recipients have to do. So this is going to be, you've made your transfer on death deed. You should plan out with the recipients what they're going to have to do once you pass away. So once the home transfers to them, they have to take some steps to make sure that they fully protect their new home. So we recommend doing these 5 things. It all starts with going to the bank, and then that 2 through 5 there, that's kind of all one huge step, right? You need to get these 3 documents, and then you need to mail those 3 documents along with the $46 recording fee to the registrar. So I'll go through each one in line. You need to notify the bank, right? If you're a recipient and you just got a new home and there's a mortgage to pay, definitely need to go to the bank where that mortgage is, bring a copy of the transfer on death deed. If you have a certified death certificate already, it's good to have that. You're pretty much just trying to prove to the bank, hey, I own this home now, and I need to start making those mortgage payments. So even if the mortgage is already paid, just note also the recipient's going to have to start paying those property taxes as well. All right. So starting the 3 documents, right, that you're going to have to get and eventually send to the government. The first one is a certified death certificate for whoever previously owned the home. So if multiple people own the home, you need one for each of those grantors is what we call them. The death certificates are $13. It's a pretty easy application. It's like a 2-page application. It's a little bit simpler if you're a family member of who passed away. If you're not a family member, you might just have to attach an addendum, like attach the transfer on death deed to the application. All right. The next document you're going to need to get is what's called a clearance certificate. So what is a clearance certificate? Well, it is something that tells you that that the home, let's take a step back. There's the possibility that the government has debt that the former owner had, and they are going to assess that debt against the home. So how does that happen? The former owner, if they had medical assistance or insurance through the Minnesota government, they often, you're going to pay all that, but if any debt starts to form, any payments that weren't made through that insurance for that former owner, that debt, right, stays around after that former owner has passed away. So the debt's still here, and the government owns that debt. But they can't get any money from the former owner, right? They've now passed away. What they do is they assess a lien against the home, right? So a lien just means if no one ever pays that debt, then the government is allowed to sell the home, take the proceeds from the sold home to pay off the debt, and then any extra proceeds will go to the new owner. So what this clearance certificate is, it's that new owner saying, well, let me just check to see if there's any debt. So you send in this application, it goes to the government, and the government checks. They think, oh, wait, nope, there's no debt. You're good. And they'll send you the clearance certificate that says you're good, no debt to pay. Or if there is debt, they'll say, this is how much is owed, and this is how you can pay it. Then you pay it, and then they send you the document that says you're all good. It's important to note that if the recipient cannot pay off the debt, and then the government sells the home, and even through selling the home, they don't make enough money to pay off the debt, so there's still some amount of debt that the government has, the government is not going to be able to go after the person, the new owner of the home, right? The recipient. They can't try to collect on even more of that debt. Once they sell the home, that's it. That's what the clearance certificate application looks like. It's kind of a complicated process to understand what it's doing, but the application is pretty simple. You just need social security numbers for the former owners of the home and some information about you. All right, so now you have two of the three documents, right? You have the certified death certificate, you've got the clearance certificate. Now you just need to write out the affidavit of identity and survivorship, a fancy name, but really all it's doing is saying, I'm the recipient of the transfer on death deed. I'm still alive and I am the owner of the house now. It's just you saying that in a way that the government is like, okay, sounds good. That one has to be notarized. So you fill it out, go and get it signed in front of a notary. And then after you're done with that, you connect it to all the two other documents and you can send it to the registrar. Yeah, you can see there, it's also just a 2-page document. You are going to need to know the legal description of the property like we talked about earlier. Yep. So you've got those three forms. You've got the death certificate, the clearance certificate, the affidavit of identity and survivorship, and then you send it to the county registrar. Again, that's the county registrar where the property is located. And it costs $46 to do this. All right, so that's pretty much all the recipient has to do, right? They need to go to the bank and talk about how to take over the mortgage, and then they need to show the government, hey, I own this home now. There's no debt on it. We're all good. After they do all that, that's the TODD process in its entirety. So a summary here, a transfer on death deed is a great way to protect your home for future generations. You get to decide who it goes to. It's less expensive than a will because it's just for your home. It doesn't bother with all that other complicated stuff a will can get into. I didn't touch on this, but you can make and cancel a transfer on death deed at any time. You could also revise it. Say at one point you wanted to give your home to your daughter, but you've decided since then you want to give it to your son. You just fill out a new transfer on death deed, and the most recent one is the one that's going to control. And if you were to want to sell your home, say you made a transfer on death deed that gave it to your daughter, gave the home to your daughter, but then couple of years later, you're like, no, I want to sell my home. You can still sell it. If you sell it, that just nullifies the past transfer on death deed. And we just recommend making a plan with the recipient once you do make a transfer on death deed so that they can take over owning the home as smoothly as possible. And if you ever need any help with any of this, Mid-Minnesota Legal Aid is here to help. And we have the contact info on the next slide. Yeah, if you're thinking of making a transfer on death deed and want some help, give Patty Walton a call or email her. And if you ever have any civil legal issues, Mid-Minnesota Legal Aid is free for low-income and elderly people. So give us a call.